just to give by way of background, there's a lot of public debate that I notice about TPPA.
Yeah.
But when I read the writings, very little of it is concerned with the financial services sector per se. And then I went back and I looked at from the American side, the background is the Korean agreement, or KORUS. And in looking at the debate on KORUS, there is also very little on financial services there. Even when I look at the current debate, perhaps the most vocal people are the New Zealanders. And even in New Zealand, there is very little about the financial services sector. So my remit is to address financial issues per se. And I have been pushed into the position of playing the devil's advocate and trying to find what questions I can ask, so that, when people tell me, what does TPPA imply for financial services, I can try and anticipate possible objections people might have. So that is why I've been going around and asking people, excuse me for doing this. I send myself an email on the questions I might want to ask. So I'm looking up the questions over here and then trying to send them out there. And I'm just going back into my email repeatedly for this. So as I understand it at the moment, no one seems to be particularly concerned about the impact on financial services per se. Would you consider that to be generally agreeable?
This will be the main focus of your.
That's right. My talk on June 2nd will focus on TPPA as it relates to finance specifically. Of course, I will begin with some general questions on my general observations. One of them I will certainly make is that as I'm a Bangladeshi American, I'm glad I'm not asked to talk about labor, because that would be a problem.
But if I just may ask before we go on to that question, are you looking specifically for Malaysia or
specifically for Malaysia?
I see. Okay.
I'm looking at the question specifically in the context of Malaysia.
Okay.
And we want to address this. We are hoping to invite not only the CIMB policymakers but all the major banks to the talk, plus other policymakers, and anyone who is curious about what TPPA might mean for the financial services sector in general. And that is the reason for my trying to be as accurate as possible. As I tell anybody who asks, saya tatamu. So I am ignorant about many details, and I am trying to find out specifics about Malaysia. So you will excuse me both for not knowing certain specifics and also for playing the devil's advocate, so that I can get these issues out.
Okay, all right. I think your observation is right in a sense that when you look at all this analysis, when people talk about TPP, the focus on financial services is almost non-existent, and I think there's a reason for it. It's not just for TPP. If you go back to all other FTAs that has financial services chapter, you may find that similarly the focus on financial services may not be that prominent. I think largely because financial services is a highly regulated sector, and there's an international body governing it. For example, there's we have BIS talking about certain prudential standards, and there's also other governing bodies. So in this context, it's slightly different perspective, and financial services is clearly a big component of a trade agreement. It is important. However, if you look at the trend for Malaysia, I don't know whether you're aware, although that we are familiar with having an element or component of financial services obligations in our previous FTAs before TPP, but TPP is the first time that we actually have a standalone financial services chapter. And from our perspective, the way we look at it is that we think it is important for a highly regulated systemic sector to be how to say to have its own chapter where everything is actually lumped into that particular chapter. We talk about, you know, prudential, you talk about market access, you talk about even treatment, recourse, everything would be in that particular chapter. So because of its, you know, it's a lot of implications on other areas as well. But I think, I mean, my own perspective, one of the reasons why it has the analysis may not be as much because it's already a highly regulated chapter, a highly regulated sector that has been discussed at international level. So what you want to do is to make sure that, and I believe that, you know, any country that goes into a negotiation when it comes to financial services, their main focus, even for Malaysia, our main focus is to make sure that we are able to continue to ensure financial stability, macroeconomic stability. That's our key mandate when we went into the negotiations.
So there has been a financial services master plan and a capital market master plan.
Yeah.
Is there any divergence between what TPPA requires, or is it all consonant with it?
For Malaysia?
Yes.
For Malaysia, when we came up with our, because we have our financial sector master plan, and then once that that has lapsed, we have our financial sector grouping, and financial sector grouping together with our capital market master plan. The way we see it, TPP complements this plan. It is not contradictory, and it just so happened that because the plan came about even before Malaysia joins TPP, and we don't cater our plan to FTA negotiations, but it just so happened that, you know, it actually complements, because one of the key pillar that we have in our financial sector blueprint is to actually open up market to competition. When we have, during our financial sector master plan, right after the 1997-98 crisis, the main focus was to actually strengthen our financial sector, our banking sector. We have actually reached that stage, and the next organic step is actually to having more healthy competition, and the goal of the financial sector blueprint is to actually have more foreign competition in Malaysia, but of course that foreign competition is subject to this, we call it best interest of Malaysia test, where any new financial services interested to set up business in Malaysia would have to meet, there's 4 criteria in the best interest of Malaysia test. If you look at our financial sector blueprint, it's in Schedule 5 of our Financial Services Act, right?
Yeah.
So it is.
If you look at the TPP Financial Services Annex for Malaysia, it's also summarized there.
It's also summarized in there. So you can look at the 4 criteria. These 4 criteria actually allows us a lot of room to make sure that the new entrants will be able to contribute to Malaysia meaningfully, because we do not want to have new financial institutions that do not create or do not bring in, for example, new technology or new products, and just add on to whatever that we already have currently. So best interest of Malaysia criteria is something, if you look at it, it's something that has been adopted by developed economies. For example, Canada, Australia, they also have similar requirements for new entrants into their market. So this is something that we have adopted, and has actually been agreed by other TPP members for Malaysia to continue adopting or continue implementing this requirement for their banks to enter into Malaysia. So that's why we don't see any contradictory between what we envision, what we have planned for the development of our financial services sector, as well as the FTA that coming into stream currently in TPP.
I appreciate your explaining all that to me. Could I ask a clarificatory question
Sure.
now, or should I wait till later?
Sure.
You said that the overarching goal is to stimulate competition, and yet you say that the best interests of Malaysia conditions require the introduction of new products. Isn't there an implicit contradiction in the idea that perhaps a foreign bank will introduce an existing product in a more competitive way?
Well, yeah, it's that's why this is the beauty of best interest of Malaysia criteria. Because if you look, I could. I don't know whether you're familiar with the 4 criteria.
No.
Okay.
Actually, I was looking through my TPPA handout here, and I think I never photocopied that part of it.
Okay.
So I think for this one, if you refer to Malaysia's Annex 3, which is our non-conforming measures.
I see Annex 13B.
No, it's Annex 3. It's called non-conforming measures for the financial services sector. So there are two entries. There are 2 non-conforming measures there that talk about the best interest of Malaysia in terms of licensing, new entrants, licensing and acquisitions. So the 4 criteria is summarized.
The 4 criteria basically, it says that the effect of the investment on the level and nature of economic activity in Malaysia, contribution to enhancing international trade between Malaysia and investment linkages between Malaysia and other countries, effect of investment on the stability of the financial system, and degree and significance of participation of Malaysians in the financial sector. So when you talk about just now, if let's say they don't introduce new product, but somehow they introduce maybe a new way of doing business, or something that's
An old product with a greater price competition. That's simple.
Yeah, that could also be considered as part of the best interest of Malaysia criteria. There's no like box where you need to check that, or it's A, B, C, and D. It gives us room to actually ensure that these new financial institutions would actually bring benefits to Malaysia, will fill any gaps that we have currently.
It's a full qualitative assessment of a new entrant. So if a financial, it's quite similar to how we do things now anyway, because we previously. So when somebody comes in to say, I would like to set up in your country, they would have to come to the bank and tell the bank this is what we're going to do. So it's basically codifying it. But the significant thing about the best interest of Malaysia test is that we've removed all of our quantitative limitations. So now it's just a qualitative assessment of how this new entrant would contribute to the economic development of Malaysia. Recognizing that the financial sector is very critical as a catalyst to further economic development. That's why this is now the step for us to allow, to liberalize and allow more foreign entrants so that they can fill in, like what the professor says, fill in the gaps where it is needed.
And it is not only for foreign entrants. Locals who want to set up a new bank or new insurance companies would also be subject to the same thing. So that's the idea that we have behind this, to remove any discrimination. So it doesn't matter your nationality, as long as you can prove that you will bring benefits to the overall economy of Malaysia, then it will be considered favorably.
Can I ask, this is just my ignorance, what is the general profit rate among Malaysian banks?
General profit rate?
Yeah.
I'm afraid I don't have the information with me immediately. My regulators probably have it.
Is it published somewhere?
I think the profit rates would probably be published in their individual annual reports, which would be publicly available, and they will be online. I mean, they should be publicly available and available.
I'm not sure whether we have like a consolidator as a regulator.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking that if I could ask myself in general, how attractive would Malaysia be? And one simple test for that would be to compare Malaysian profit rates, or published profit rates, with profit rates in the region, and then with profit rates with American banks, for example, to see how much they would enter. But if they are publicly available somewhere, I will do my due diligence on
I
that.
think it should be publicly available. But what we know, at least for the insurance industry, it is still highly attractive, although some of the products are not really highly innovative. This is largely possibly because of our own, Malaysian culture, that we don't really